What's up, Diablo 4 players? So today we're going to be talking about awesome new good features that are coming out in Season 6 and the expansion Vessel of Hatred. Now, even if you do not buy the expansion, you do get to still experience a bunch of these things. They released a blog article a while back and they did cover some of these, but I want to focus in on the ones that they did not cover. Now, it's going to be awesome. We're going to get this new raid endgame content. We're also getting mercenaries and a lot of other underground trading that's going to come out into the game. We don't know too much about that, but that has been something that has already been revealed. We already know that there's going to be newer skills, as well as the new temper scroll reset. So basically it's a scroll of retempering, which is going to be awesome, and that's going to be available for all players. But there are some undocumented changes that actually went through on the PTR, and I'm here to go ahead and show you guys all the cool changes that are going to be completely for free too. So for starters, there's going to be some awesome new character screens. So before we used to have this campfire. Honestly, it's pretty nostalgic to see that Diablo 2 campfire style, but now it's a little bit different. With this, I don't really care too much. It doesn't really affect gameplay or really anything other than the first few seconds when you're clicking on a character. And then you get to see some of the skills, which I think is an actual really good addition so that you can kind of see the identity of the character. It's more so for newer players, but nonetheless, it is a newer change. Now, things that actually may matter a little bit more, you're going to be able to add extra hairstyles completely for free. They could have charged for this and I wouldn't be surprised, but the fact that they're coming out with new hairstyles for completely free is awesome. And there's also a few new colors, and these are free as well. At least keep in mind what I'm mentioning is from the PTR. And then on top of that, you can see different colors over here. They changed a few things with renown. This doesn't really matter too much. But another thing that I think is a really good change that was undocumented was the buff UI. This is actually a very nice change. Not only do we have basically a second row here, but we actually have some durations if we do mouse over them. Now, the brand new purple skills over here that you're seeing in the buff menu, those are going to be for the rune words, which is actually really helpful because sometimes you need to know how close you are to activating them. And another bonus tip that I want to give you guys with this undocumented change is that when you see the purple triangle, I'm talking right here if you guys can see where my mouse is, when that is active, that means your next skill, depending on what it is, sometimes it's you walk a certain distance, but the next threshold will actually cast that thing. So it's very helpful for if you need to snapshot or time certain things. That little triangle indication is actually very helpful right next to the skill. Another thing that is very helpful for certain builds to check out certain durations, if you do mouse over it, it does tell you. I kind of wish it did have that there's that 30 number right next to the ice blades for the buff. I wish it just put the number right next to it. That would be kind of helpful. It does have this little clockwise thing for its duration, but it would be nice also to have the number right next to it since they already technically have it for some of the skills. That would be nice, but this is another change for some of the newer skills and stuff, so it just makes things a little bit easier. Another really nice change is the training dummy. If you guys go into Yugioh and you go to the training dummy, there is a bunch of different options that you can actually enable to go ahead and actually have the dummy actually attack you. So maybe you need to buff up your cold resistance or whatever certain thing that you're trying to test out. This is actually great for two reasons. One, to kind of test it out, and also as a content creator, there's a lot of times where certain things are bugged and they will double dip, or basically they will activate more times than they should, or sometimes certain passives that reduce damage literally don't even work. So this is going to be a really great thing to add into the game. One thing that I am hoping that they can add in the future, if any of you guys have played Diablo Immortal, their training dummy is way better because you can actually calculate the DPS, not just a big number that you can show up on screen, but to actually calculate how much % of your damage is via this skill and this skill, because if you played certain hybrid builds, it's kind of hard to determine how much damage is one thing in particular doing, but this is still a great addition to the game, definitely a nicer thing. Another thing that is actually being changed is they are no longer going to have the living seal. So normally you'd go into Helltide, and if you wanted to do Gregor, you would go and try to farm those chests, right? But now this is actually changed, and you just open up the Tortured Gift of Mysteries, and you will just get a bunch of extra living seals. So basically, you do Helltide content, you will get living seal, so you don't have to specifically open up those chests. And I think this is overall a nicer change. It just basically makes it so you're going to get more legendaries a little bit faster, so you can kind of upgrade your progression. Another newer undocumented change was all these materials, and it's specifically the Stygian stones are no longer going to be required for the tormented bosses. You just need the regular material. So pretty much that means that as long as you can do the harder content, it was always going to be worth it. Now, since Stygian Stones are going away, does that mean that you have to get rid of yours now? More than likely, they will have some sort of like conversion. They'll just convert your Stygian Stones to something else. But at the end of the day, if you want to get rid of them for gold and then invest into whatever you want right now, sure, by all means, go for it. Because again, those are going to be going away. But they did change some of the requirements for some of them. Here are some of them up on the screen. Basically, Stygian Stones are no longer required. However, with the addition of Infernal Hordes, I felt like Stygian Stones are super plentiful. This was only something before when we only could obtain these kind of via the pit, and they had a very low drop rate. But basically now, since the Infernal Hordes exist, I don't think it's a problem at all as far as Stygian Stones, but they're getting removed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Another thing that is gaining change is the pit material that you normally go through the pit and you'd grab the Dugsite or the Neath Iron, right? You'd get that material to go ahead and masterwork. So instead of having 3 different tiers and you would then convert one tier to a lower tier, you now just have one source. Now to obtain these, you just do Nightmare Dungeons, which they have mentioned, but they didn't actually let us know as far as I'm aware of. This is in like the whole list of the undocumented changes via Wowhead. But basically, there's only one now, so it's a little bit easier. It's a nice quality of life change. Basically, you don't have to go all the way to the NPC, because depending on what town you're in, sometimes the NPC can be farther away. But basically, this is the only crafting material that you need. So your other materials, more than likely, it's just going to automatically auto-convert. But if you want to convert it now and you're maybe a eternal player, by all means, you can just convert it. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But yes, this is something that has been changed. So you only need this material. Now, that doesn't mean everything is going to be super, super cheap. It's going to cost way more. My guess is it's about going to be the same. But basically, you will automatically be able to have some sort of conversion, is my guess, for the changes when they remove the other 2 materials. And then on top of that, they actually added a couple different things. They actually have some other like resources that you can get with the Whispers. There's also like the Greater Cache of Gold over here. You can see this like screenshot that they showed off over on Wildhead. But for the most part, people don't really utilize this for gold. If you guys want to know what the best way to get gold in the game is, without a doubt, it is just via trading on Diablo trade. It is the best way to actually get gold, but at least they're offering, you know, some other things that you can get. And I believe that, I think that there's also like a gem one that you can get. Speaking of gems, for some reason, later down the line in the game, they made it a lot harder to obtain the highest levels of the gems. And one thing that you can do, since gems are tradable, if you do want to make a bunch of gold, this is a great way to make gold as well, is by selling your max level gems. Like maybe you don't need a certain one, right? Maybe you already filled up all your slots. And in Season 6, we're going to be able to get up to 300 main stat with 2 gems, basically 100 to your main stat was in Season 5 and below. But now we can go up to 150 per gem. So that means in like the 2 sockets that you'd have in a piece of gear, that's 300, which is actually pretty big. But what's nice over here is you're able to convert. So maybe you only need, you know, emeralds, and then maybe you want rubies or whatever. Whatever the case is, you can actually convert your other sources of fragments into another one. So that's going to be really cool. You can see convert 3 into like 1 here. So you can convert your materials. I think that that is really good. Another thing that I thought was quite nice is they're actually adding in different mounts, and you can see that the cost over here, you can just purchase these and it's just 100,000 gold, which is honestly nothing. This is basically free mounts for everyone. Now, again, I'm just showing you guys these undocumented changes. Keep in mind, things could change. I don't think they would put these mounts here and then, like, you know, charge you in game, what they call it, what, platinum in the game for that. But those are a bunch of the undocumented changes that I want to go ahead and go over and kind of my thoughts on them. Overall, these are all positive things, which is great, because sometimes when I make videos criticizing Diablo, sometimes people think, dude, do you hate this game? No, I just want this game to be as good as possible. And all these changes, for the most part, I don't see any of these changes really being bad at all. These are all overall nice quality of life improvements to the game that I think are really good. But one thing that I do want to say with the buff bar is I still think that it is not enough. Depending on what class you play, specifically like the rogue, there is still not enough in the buff bar. So it would be really cool to maybe disable certain things in the buff bar, because like I don't need to see certain things that I can see visually. Like for example, like the 5 dark shrouds, I can visually see that on my character, so I may not need that. And if I could just disable it because I need to actually have something else, whether it be like the Banished Swords Talisman, or like there's so many items that have a very specific buff. Like this is like Air of Perdition, which is a new mythic. There's a lot of things in the game right now, and there's just simply not enough room on the buff bar. Even though we have still doubled what we got before, it's simply not enough. So hopefully they can take that feedback and utilize it. But anyways, that's my thoughts on the new awesome changes. And keep in mind, all of this will be free. Like every single, whether you get the expansion or not, all these changes will be made to the base game, which is really, really awesome. Now there's one exception, obviously. As far as the mercenaries go and like the new Spiritborn class, more than likely you're going to have to buy the expansion for that, just so we are clear with what they have actually mentioned over here. But anyways, that's going to wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn the bell so you don't miss out on important Diablo info. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one. I'm out.